Hi everyone, my name is Voya and welcome to my deep guide. In today's video we're going to be checking out the Onyx Boox Max 3, but specifically more to see how it works and how to approach the operations to make it work as a secondary PC display with wires, wirelessly, and also I'm going to dig into the USB OTG functionality to test out what works, how it works, etc, etc. So let's start. Alright, so here's Max 3 and it's hooked up to my PC via the micro HDMI cable. So this directly goes into the graphics card of my PC. This here is a regular USB-C just to provide some power. Now the power is not a requirement but is a strong recommendation, because as soon as you actually enter the monitor mode you will get a warning that it's recommended, highly recommended to plug in a power supply, because the monitor mode spends a lot of battery. So the setup is as straightforward as it gets. Hook up power, hook up the signal, there you go, like any monitor. Once you have that hooked up, then you go to apps, and in the apps you will find a an app called Monitor, and I'm just gonna tap it. Now my screen is blinking. I'm upside down, but it does says the monitor function, the battery quickly drains, please keep it plugged in, blah blah blah. Okay, so the very first problem is that I'm upside down, but that's not a big issue, because as soon as you tap while you're in the monitor mode, you have the ability under other. You can change the orientation. So screen orientation, you can just tap here. Oh, sorry, yeah, there, and now it flips correctly. Alternatively, you can also simply swipe down and use the rotate function. Find the T that you like and it will also flip there. Before I get into the options of the monitor app, I'm just going to show you what you actually see on the desktop. So once you have it hooked up, it will automatically show up as an additional screen. And as the additional screen here, you have the correct resolution of 2200 by 1650, and you can choose to treat it like any other extended or copy or mirrored display. So you can position it in any orientation you want, and you can do pretty much whatever you want. Now, so if I move my cursor to the side, you will probably notice it's very, very tiny. Let's go somewhere where it's dark. There it is. That's my cursor. And the refresh rate, of course, is very low. The app itself works by a single tap. You will have a couple of options, and the options that we have is the auto full refresh interval, and it can go from 1 minute all the way to 100 minutes. So it all really depends what you're doing, but yeah, so the auto refresh mode is there. Contrast is also there, so that you can adjust your contrast depending on what you have. And extremely conveniently, we have the shortcuts to the speed modes or the refresh modes. So we have the text mode, speed mode, and the X mode. Now, obviously, in the X mode, you will have most degradation, but you will also have most interactivity, because you can see that now I can actually click and drag and it almost behaves okay. But to me, the degradation is so severe that I simply switch it to speed mode, breathe a sigh of relief, because things are looking okay. In the other options, we also have the screen orientation, as I have shown. You can reset the settings to default, and you can also check the always show full refresh button, and the always show full refresh button, always show refresh buttons is right here. So you can just press it and it'll refresh the whole screen. Other than that, that's pretty much it. Now this is your e-ink display that's hooked up to your PC, laptop, or whatever it is that you want. So I'm now just gonna drag in a window here, and this is just for typing, so I'm just simply gonna start dragging it in here. And you can see that the refresh rate is not that bad. It's something that's actually quite usable in the speed mode. You can see that there's definitely some ghosting going on, but I can just simply hit refresh and it's all gone. So now I would simply maximize this. Let's try and maximize it. There we go. Maybe refresh, and yeah, I can just start typing. So like before, I can try and zoom in a little bit. Maybe let's try and, yeah, I think this is a bit better. For this display size, I can move my navigation ball over here, and yeah, then you can just start using it normally as you would any other screen. But yeah, it also has the text mode, which is super high contrast. It's just so exploded that it's a little bit too much for my taste, and nothing I can do to actually minimize it. So the text mode is a little weird. Maybe it makes sense for reading news articles and things like that, but for writing things in the speed mode, I most definitely am able to find a good ratio here with the contrast and everything to actually make it work like the way I want it to. So one tap to hide the menu, and now I can just start typing, and let's see how it actually performs, since I'm going to be using my external keyboard hooked up to my PC. Yeah, unlike on the Nova 2, which of course this is totally understandable, it's far easier to see where your cursor is and everything else, simply because we're talking about a 13.3 inch display, so everything works pretty nicely. The lag is definitely there. How problematic is the lag? Yeah, problematic. And let's see here. Well, it is an issue, but I think with a little bit of getting used, I think it's just a matter of getting used to it and knowing what to expect. So for me, yeah, this absolutely works. So let's try out and see how does browsing actually look like in this mode. Well, since I'm already in Chrome, I'm simply going to add a new tab, and now let's go to the Onyx Boox site. So Onyx Boox Max 3. And yeah, definitely something that you can use, especially if you adjust the zoom levels, then it most definitely works. So, oh, this is an ad. Well, I don't want to go there. This is definitely an ad. I mean, it just works. It's a screen. There's nothing more or less to it. It just properly works. So the setup is super easy. The screen works as you would expect it to work, and I think this is something really usable. It's very nice to actually have an option of having an additional 13.3 e-ink display for your setup, either for your laptop or anything like that. I think this is quite a cool thing. So yeah, this definitely works, and I think it's quite usable. And I almost forgot, you exit the app by doing a long press on the screen, and it will say exit monitor, and you just press OK, and that's that. Alright, so now I'm gonna be testing out the wireless connectivity and using the Onyx Boox Max 3 as a wireless 13.3 secondary display. And I'm gonna be using the same approach as that I used for Nova 2. So if you want some explanations on how to set up the Space Desk, where to find it, and what are the requirements, please check out the Nova 2 using as a secondary display display video that I made earlier to get all the details. So I won't be covering that here, simply because it's all already covered there. So what I have here is the Space Desk server is on and running on my PC. Max 3 is hooked up via Wi-Fi to the same network that my PC is on, and I started the Space Desk app on the Max 3. So now it automatically found my server, so I'm simply going to tap on the server or the connection. I always forget, it's the connection, right? So now the display is connected, and all right, this is the way it is. Now the orientation is like this. Okay, now here's the thing. Can I change the orientation so that it's vertical? I don't know. Let's try. Let's do this. Can we do that? No, I don't think that worked. So can it be vertical? No, it can't be vertical. All right, maybe there's a way to do it vertically. I'll explore, but for now, this is what I have at the moment. So the first thing I notice is that I most definitely have the wrong resolution here. So the way to fix that is going to the display settings, and I'm just going to move the server over here, and then selecting my added display, choosing the correct resolution, and now it should go fine. Yep, now we have the correct resolution is on, and yeah, we are extending it, and that's pretty much okay. Do I have my cursor? Yes, I do. What speed mode are we in? Normal mode. Well, let's get to A2 mode, because that's something that makes more sense. All right, so as far as I can tell, the speed and how it actually looks like is fairly similar. Now, I don't know if my navigation ball has... No, it's not disappeared, it's over here, so I can still use the refresh, but I no longer have the auto refresh function that I do have if I were using this as a connected via cables and using the monitor app. Alright, so now let's just drag in the same thing that we used before. There we go, and it goes in, and let's just maximize and try and compare this to see how it works. Let's clear out the ghosting to have a clean slate and minimize this over here. It works. It just works pretty much the same as everything before. You can use the scale, and of course, because it's a larger format, I think it's a far better option and far better experience than with the Nova 2, because you have way more real estate. Now, I'm not entirely certain. It looks like that it's a little bit more sharper, maybe a bit more sharper over the cable, but then again, I'm not entirely certain. The text looks a little bit better. So for the text, I don't like the ghosting, and I know that I won't need super interactivity, and here I can just do this. So let's try, can I interact with the PC? Oh my, yes you can. Now that's definitely an advantage. Let's make this A2 again so that we can actually show this. So one of the clear advantages via the Space Desk app is that now it's not only a e-ink screen, it's a touch screen, because it's receiving the updates from the touches here. Now, of course, I've minimized it over there, and maybe I should actually use a pen for this. But yeah, definitely you can combine the use of the mouse or the touches as well, which is really, really cool. So I do like this quite a lot. How would I use this? Well, I would switch it to normal mode, and let's try and maximize. There we go, I managed. And then let's continue writing, I guess in a normal mode. Normal mode I think is too much, and the problem with the touch input is definitely there, because then it's always going to interfere. So maybe if you don't want that, maybe you could disable it in some of the settings, but I am not sure. I'll definitely test that out, but for now this is me trying it out like this for the first time. So I'm just sharing that experience to see how it looks like. So typing wirelessly on Max 3 via my PC and using it as a secondary display. Space desk pretty much rules because it's very clean. I really like how it works, but I do think that the overall experience is a little bit more usable. It's weird because you have the pros, there's pros on the wired way of using things, simply because you have those shortcuts and all that kind of stuff, but via Space Desk it's wireless and you can use the touch input, which is pretty freaking cool. So now I'm wondering if I were to hook up a Bluetooth keyboard to the Max 3, could I then type on this document via my keyboard? Because then I have a wireless setup to a really powerful machine like a workstation, and then I can use completely wirelessly Max 3 and a keyboard. Let's set that up and see. Alright, so here's my Bluetooth keyboard that's now hooked up and paired up with the Max 3, and yeah, my setup is a little weird, but this definitely works. So I can now type on my wireless keyboard hooked up to Max 3 via Bluetooth, and actually type on a document on my PC workstation. Holy moly, this is freaking cool. Now this is something I really like, because I know that this is gonna depend on the use case scenarios, but for me this is a big one, because I use workstations, so really powerful PCs, because I do really hard work and all that kind of stuff, and this makes it possible to have a completely wireless setup to my workstation if I should choose to do that, and if I do have a need. So for example, if it's rendering a video or something like that and I need to write up an article, there's a practical example. The video is rendering for the review of Max 3, and then I get this set up and go into the garden and start typing up the document, the article for the actual review, and then just hook it up, and I can just Alt tab and check everything else and see how the rendering is progressing without the need of going back into the room. So this is a huge plus for me. This is properly cool and properly awesome. I really love this use case. Alright, the next thing that I wanted to check out in this video is also the USB OTG functionality. What works, what doesn't work, how it works, etc. So, of course, if you just plug in the cable that goes directly to your computer, the device will appear as a USB drive, and then you can transfer the files and everything else, and that's all fine. However, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the use of the USB-C hubs, which have advanced functionalities, such as, of course, adding the USB the 3 drives, but also reading the cards, pass-through of the power, HDMI, and LAN. Though the LAN thing I can't really test out, but the rest of the stuff I can. And yeah, so first I want to check out the pass-through, because that's one of the biggest problems that, or most often reported problems. And I went ahead and made sure that I get a USB-C hub that is guaranteed to actually have power pass-through functionality, and that's this guy here. So I'm going to test it now first on my phone. Plug it in. This is just the power, to test out the power, and you can see that we have the power charging. All right, so that's as expected. So now I'm gonna plug in the pass-through hub. It's now plugged in, and if I plug in the power now into the hub, what should happen is the device should start getting the power. So we have this plugged in, and we got the power charging up again. So this guy definitely works. Now the next thing that I want to try out as well is, while the power is going through the hub, plug in a drive as well to see if that's going to interrupt the power flow. So the folder has detected a SanDisk USB drive that I plugged in and is charging still at the same time. So that eliminates any possibility that it could be a fault of the hub itself. That's the method of elimination. Now we're going to test the same thing on the Max 3. We know that the hub works. We know that it works with an Android phone. So we have an Android device here. We have a USB-C hub that works and that should have power pass-through. So let's check out what works and what doesn't work. First of all, I'm gonna double check that the charge works here as expected. Yep, bling, and we have charging. All right, that's without pass-through, that's just direct power. Now let's plug this guy in. It lights up, so that's okay. Now let's plug in a USB drive. The USB drive has appeared, and we are now allowed to actually explore our USB drive. So I can just explore the folders here on this guy, and that's actually pretty cool. So I could just play a audio file. Let's go somewhere where, yeah. All right, cool. That's music from my game. So definitely this works. All right, so now one note: in order to safely eject this guy, you have the eject function here. So I can actually do that. I'm going to eject the drive. It's safely ejected. That's all right. Now let's test out the pass-through. Now let's plug in the power and see what we get. Same setup as before. No. Unfortunately, no. The power pass-through doesn't function on a USB-C OTG power pass-through hub, which definitely works on another Android device. I tested it now in a single take, and yeah, that doesn't work. Let's see if I can still have my SanDisk drive recognized if I plug it in. Yep. So the hub works. I still have the drive recognized here, and I can eject it if I want to, but the power pass-through doesn't work. And similarly, the same story goes with the HDMI as well. I tested out on my phone, and if I plug in the HDMI, I get the output of the phone, outputted on any screen, TV, PC screen, it doesn't matter, it actually just worked, but not so on the Max 3. The memory card slot works. USB OTG functionality seems to be limited just to drives, and to be fair, that is actually what the documentation does say. They say USB-C OTG functionality to connect USB drives to your tablet. Yep, that definitely works, but I think it would have been nice if we could see in the future maybe a more full-on implementation of the USB OTG, especially with the power pass-through and the HDMI out, because that would open up, like, you could start drawing and sketching and doing these things, just hook it up directly to a projector, and you know that works in a classroom, or simply hook it up and do something else. So that, I think, would be something that's incredibly useful. However, the drives definitely work, but I think that the power pass-through should be something that's standardized and that it actually works, because I think that should be a must. Alright, I hope that the video was informative for you guys. It certainly was an eye-opening experience for me, especially because it was possible to use it as a wireless display with a wireless keyboard hooked up to a much more powerful machine, which allows me to do things that I really couldn't do before. So that's something that's super awesome, and I'm excited to actually start using that a little bit more while I still have it on loan to kind of test things out and see how that works. One of the things that I'm going to be also testing out is the battery life. I'm just simply curious, how much of a battery life can you get out of the Max 3 working as a wireless secondary display somewhere, using Wi-Fi, wireless display and Bluetooth. So that's like really kind of cranking it up. So I'm curious to see like how much can you get out of it. Other than that, the USB OTG functionality, as I said, I think it's nice that it works. I also tested out a wired keyboard that worked as well. It's nice that it works, but it would have been nicer to see more consistency with the power pass-through compatibility and also with the HDMI out, so that you can use the USB-C hub and OTG and export the video signal from your Max 3 onto an external display, because there's certainly use cases that would be very good for something like that. Maybe a future update will actually address that, so I don't know, but at the moment this is pretty much how it works. I hope the video helps. I hope you liked it. Thanks so much for watching and for the support, and see you in the next video. Bye!